What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Malik's Water Garden. In today's video, we're actually going to look at something that might be important to a lot of us, which is how we can make money from breeding fish. We're all interested in breeding fish for one purpose, that is to actually ultimately sell them and make some profit. So actually, in the last video I talked about if you think I should be selling fish. Now I've actually decided to sell retail fish. So comment below and let me know if you are interested in buying fish from me. And if you are in the Greater Toronto area or in Ontario in general, we can actually get you some fish that I am breeding here. And subscribe down below and hit that notification icon so you get up there when these videos get uploaded. And let's take this journey together on how we can make money breeding fish. So how to breed fish is something everybody's interested in, and I believe one of the main reasons for that is to also profit from breeding these animals. Based on one of the papers I was just reading from the University of Florida, it says that I'll actually put a link to this paper down below if you guys want to read it. Okay, so this paper from the University of Florida goes on to state that although exact figures of the value of the trade of ornamental fish industry does not exist, the value of ornamental fish and invertebrates imported into the different countries worldwide is approximately 278 million US dollars. So 278 million US dollars worth of fish and invertebrates get imported worldwide. Okay? So that's one figure. And the pet industry survey has estimated the aquarium industry worth over 1,000 million US dollars. And then they put the citations on how they get those numbers. So 1,000 million US dollars. That's a lot of money. Although most fish kept in the aquarium are from freshwater, the acquisition of marine ornamental fish has greatly increased. And below that, like a little ways below that, it also explains something that I thought was quite interesting. I read this through, so I recommend you guys read these stuff that I post below the links. Not all of it, at least the introduction, because it will give you a really good idea of what I'm also talking about and how much money is actually in this business. So down below it goes into saying, for example, the retail value for a kilogram of coral reef fish destined for the aquarium trade may be worth 500 to 1,800 US dollars, while a marine fish used for human consumption can be priced between $6 and $16.50 US per kilogram. And that's also from the same study earlier, Cato and Brown 2003, Wobnitz ETAL 2003. So they put all the citations where they get all the information and the numbers. So these are statistical data. And so obviously growing fish for the aquarium trade, for the ornamental fish trade, it seems a lot more lucrative than growing food fish. And so we're gonna basically look at how this is a very diverse topic. There's a lot of different things you can make money in this hobby, and even in the breeding aspect of things, you can get large scale farms. You see a lot of farms in Florida or like in the Far East Asia. I come from Sri Lanka. There's a lot of fish farms in Sri Lanka, and there's a lot of different people breeding fish, and even backyard breeders and whatnot. So for the purpose of our videos, we're gonna look at fish tank hobbyists that have a fish room in their own home or apartment or basement or garage, or if you are lucky enough to be in the warmer parts of the US, then in your backyard. So people that have not a largest amount of space, it's not a commercial size operation, it's more of a hobby operation that can be profitable. So that's what we're going to focus on, and the types of fish that can be bred in this type of an operation. So the first thing I'm going to say is to figure out what type of water you have. If you are lucky enough to live next to the ocean and you can pump ocean water or get ocean water into your facility with minimal amount of effort legally, then by all means keep and breed marine fish and corals. We definitely need more people keeping and breeding marine invertebrates as well as fish species, so we can propagate them in our aquariums as opposed to catching them from the ocean. So the more people doing that, the better it is. But if you are planning to keep and breed marine fish and invertebrates in a system where you have to buy salt and do water changes with the salt that you buy, then you are definitely going to be suffering a little bit in your profits for the price of salt and to create the RO and all that stuff. So that's something to really always consider. Like, I like to breed whatever I can breed in the water that I can get out of my tap. So if I was in an area where the alkalinity was higher, I would recommend breeding African cichlids and stuff like that, because you will get a way better chance breeding them, and you will get, it will be better, the fish will be better suited for your water that you locally have. For example, here in Ontario, we have a water that's about 163 parts per million on total dissolved solids right now. So in June of 2020, the total dissolved solid content is 163 parts per million. I just checked it like a little bit earlier actually. So it's not hard water. It's definitely not soft water. Soft water is definitely a lot more softer than that. But hard water is also a lot more harder. It's more like in the middle range. It's water where you can actually breed discus without too much of an issue. You can actually alter the chemistry a little bit and get a better hatch rate with discus. But all the Plecos that I keep all readily breed in the water that I have. I can breed a lot of the South American types of tetras in this water. I keep Caradina shrimp directly in my tap water without any issue. They breed in my tap water. Comment below and let me know if you guys are interested in buying Caradina shrimp. I have a lot of tap water shrimp. So like if you go to like some of the retailers here in Toronto, like Shrimp Fever and stuff like that, and you buy shrimp and they end up dying on you, my shrimp would not die on you because you cannot get RO water. My shrimp live in tap water, so if you are interested, comment below, because I really have a lot of shrimp that I want to like start selling. I will be advertising on Kijiji. Now, aside from that side little advertisement there, basically breeding animals that can live in your water is definitely in your favor, because if you have to alter the chemistry of your water, you're always going to be running into trouble. You always have to make this water, and if something goes wrong, you always have to be dependent on the system that you are relying on to make the water, and then replacing it and all that stuff, and all of it costs money. That's what the bottom line is, and money is basically something that is affecting your profit. You definitely don't want to be spending money where you don't have to. So for example, I used to have a business partner in the past who was a partner in my second fish room that was in my parents' basement. So me and him, we were in college together, and he was a few years younger than me, and our plan was to breed fish and profit while we were in college, and it was quite successful and profitable. We were breeding South American cichlids, and anytime I had success, I had plants in the tank. These animals somehow, wild-caught animals seem to breed better with the naturalistic environment, and that's something to really always consider. You want to give the animals as natural as an environment as possible to breed. So like having some stuff that mimics their natural environment seems to help in breeding. So these are things to consider. But again, angelfish is something you can spawn in a bare bottom tank with a piece of slate. You don't need anything else in there except this filter. Even that, like in my case, it's optional. I don't really even use filters sometimes in my breeding tank because it's just too much of a hassle. I just do more water changes. I do daily or every other day. I do a 50% or 60% or larger water change, sometimes a 90% water change, depending on what the nitrates levels might be rising to. And I don't let it ever get up to past a certain amount, so I'm always on top of that type of stuff. So these are things to always consider. Like I would say, as a hobby breeder, one of the fish that I've actually made a lot of money breeding is guppies. I know a lot of people might laugh, but it's really easy to sell cheap fish, and you can sell a lot of cheap fish. So for example, mud guppies seem to sell quite heavy. I know somebody that's on YouTube, Mike's Fish Room. I follow him for a while now, and he actually breeds mud guppies all summer long in tubs outside and sells them all year through his website and makes a decent amount of profit. So mud guppies definitely a thing, and it makes a lot of money. And I used to breed guppies in the mid 2000s. Actually, I was making a lot of money. Every sale was a couple of $100s. I was breeding higher end types of guppies, so like anything that had like those Dumbo ear mosaics and stuff, I was breeding those. In 2013, 2014, I was breeding the Dumbo ear mosaics and stuff, and I actually have videos on my own channel, Malik King, on YouTube, and you can check those out. Some of them I've made private, but there's a lot of videos there as well. So I was making a lot of money breeding guppies actually, and it was very lucrative actually, because you can actually colony breed them in, let's say, a 40-gallon like this. You can put like 2 or 3 pairs, and they will produce several hundred within the first 2-3 months. And then you can just start picking and selecting the ones you want to let grow out, and then you can sell the rest to pet stores or on for cheaper, and then you can sell the nice looking ones, the nice males and stuff, for 20-30 bucks a piece. So they're like, I've actually sold 5 fish for $100, and people were happy that they were $100 because those fish are like $100 each online. So there's all different grades to this, so it all depends on what you are keeping and breeding. So you want to also start, if you are keeping things like guppies, I would say breed like some of the higher end varieties, as well as a few mutt varieties or some of the cheaper varieties, so you have like a selection. And also another thing that I think that is quite lucrative is breeding commonly available types of Plecos, and I don't mean the higher end Plecos, and I mean the commonly available types. Bushy nose, bristle nose, Super Reds are a little bit a higher end one, but it's also easy to breed, so I would say those ones are good to breed as well, because it's easy to sell them. Now, you don't really want to breed something that is super easy like convicts and stuff like that, although they are really easy to breed and they're really rewarding. There's really no money in breeding convicts. Same with any of the other types of the African cichlids, the West African types. Now, there is some money in breeding West African cichlids, the really small dwarf types, but the Pelvochromis pulchra, for example, is so commonly available and they're so prolific that you cannot sell them. And they produce these in such a large quantity in the Far East that the pet stores can buy them for pennies on the dollar, and it's definitely not worth it for them to buy it from you. So you're going to saturate the market really fast. You might sell a couple of pairs initially on like whatever your preferred method of selling, but it's not something that's lucrative at all. Also, like if you look through my fish room, I always breed like tetras and stuff like that. There are tetras that are lucrative. I've actually made money breeding the larger types of tetras. Congo Tetras, for example, like these guys here, very lucrative. They sell for about $9-10 when they're small. These guys sell for about 20 bucks at this size. These are large. These are breeding size adults. They're not actually adults. I have adults that are about that big. They get to about 4 inches. But usually, you know, people have a hard time keeping this type of fish alive for some reason. But I have adults, like actually one of my adults, like I shit you not, he's 4.5 inches, 5 inches long, and he's really large, and they live quite long lives. The thing about Congo Tetras is they stress quite easily. So after this size, these are about 2.5 inches, and you really don't want to stress them. Even moving from one tank to the other, they can die. So that's something to really pay attention to. But yes, Congo Tetras are very lucrative. Diamond Tetras are lucrative. Anything that's large that sells for about $10 each, they're quite easy to reproduce as well. But in general, breeding Tetras, unless you are breeding neons and cardinals and you're producing like 10,000 fry at a time, you're not really making a lot of money. And then if you are making 10,000 fry at a time, you have to really have a source, an avenue, several pet stores that are buying them from you. But they are not too hard to sell to pet stores, because as long as you are willing to sell them for pennies on the dollar, when you are producing 10,000 fry at a time, you can actually do that. You can actually make a decent amount of money. My dad used to always say he's an import-export person. He makes money bringing stuff like fruits and vegetables and other perishable goods and other things that sell in supermarkets from my country of birth, and he imports them into our country here. Now, that's one of his businesses, at least part of what he does before he retired, and even after as well. And he always used to tell me, I used to always look at some of the stuff he does, and the profit margins for one item, for example, a fruit or a vegetable, is about a penny, or sometimes a few cents. And I'm looking at it, and he's making, let's say, 2 cents or half a penny per unit, right? And he used to always say, yes, that's a half a penny or a penny, but 10,000 pennies, it's $100. You know what I mean? And 100,000 pennies is $1,000. So a profit margin on a container that has 1 million units, even if he's making a penny a unit, is $10,000, right? And if he brings 3 of those containers in a month, he's made 30 grand. That's how that whole system works. So like, the volume sales are definitely a good thing, but then for a hobby breeder, it's definitely difficult to produce in mass quantities and to sell in mass quantity regularly because they saturate the market quite fast. So what I recommend, I've had quite good success with things like live bearers, definitely higher end live bearers, nothing that is too cheap. Some stuff that sell for like $8, $9, $10 each, like the higher end mollies, the gold dust seem to be really in desire. So you have to research your own market, see what's available, what sells for a lot, and what is not available that also sells for a lot, and then try to make those types of fish. Also talk to your local pet stores, ask them what type of fish they would be interested in if you were to breed fish for them. That's what I do regularly when I go to pet stores to buy fish. I always talk to the managers, who are usually my friends now, like for like the last 30 some years I've been keeping fish, so I know a lot of these people personally, and I ask them what type of fish would you be interested in, and if I would breed them for you, what can you not get. For example, about 10 years ago, Canada had a restriction on importing goldfish, and we still have this restriction, but it is not really enforced anymore, so they do import them quite often now. But in 2010, 2009, 2008 even, you were not able to get goldfish, really good quality goldfish that was imported from Asia, like Japan or China. So any goldfish that was here was also had to be bred here. So one of the things that one of my friends who worked at a pet store told me was to breed goldfish, and I actually made quite a bit of money doing that at the time because it was lucrative and it was something that they couldn't get. So that's something to always consider, is to always talk to the people that are in the business and ask them questions. They're always willing to share their information because they always need these animals anyways to sell. Another thing is find animals that are not too expensive. Although there is money in breeding these types of fancy plecos, there's a lot of money to be made. For example, if you're breeding L236 super whites right now and you have a clutch of, let's say, 100 fry, and even 50 of them are live, you are making a killing, my friend. That is a lot of money. But the original group of animals, you're going to spend the same amount of money to buy. And secondarily, you're going to have to grow them out for a while. You're going to have to suffer through all the losses that might happen from the time that you get them to the time you breed them. All the other things. If you're not an experienced fish keeper, this is not an endeavor that I think is smart. I would say start with bristlenose plecos, super reds. Snow whites are good just because they're a tank bred variety. And try to do it naturally, so it's minimal amount of work on your behalf. Try to breed fish that are easy to breed, that breed quite readily, that don't really require you to do too much work. For example, like the reason I'm doing fancy plecos is because when I'm at work, I can just come home from work at this time of the night instead of spending all day taking care of fry and feed the tank, the entire tank, and do a water change once a week, and at the end of the season do a harvest and collect fry. That's how I breed my corridors, that's how I breed my plecos, that's how I like to breed a lot of my fish. The reason I like to take fry out of the angelfish tanks is because I want to get more fry, because a lot of times survival rates are smaller when the parents are raising them in a community tank. But if I really wanted to, I can actually push those guys to raise the fry themselves, and then that reduces the amount of work I have to do. It's all about reducing the amount of work you have to do, and also maximizing your space. So for example, if you can breed two types of animals in the same tank without making it too crowded for either type of species, then do that. For example, I breed Carolina shrimp in a lot of my pleco tanks. Now that's something I've been doing for the last little while, and it's been working really well. It's an additional income source from my pleco tanks. It does pay for some of the food that they get. Another thing is to try to figure out what types of animals that people cannot get. Another same example, Carolina shrimp. Usually when people take them home, they call me back and say, you know what, this is the first time I bought this type of animal and it lived. Because I give them an animal that's living in our water, and I give them an animal that is healthy, that is at the top condition. If it's not healthy, I wouldn't sell it to them. And I also give them a lengthy instruction to how to take care of this animal, and I make sure they are capable of taking care of the animal before I sell them the animal. Regardless of how expensive or inexpensive the animal is, it's always the same thing, because these are living creatures and every animal life matters. Okay, so Now, having said that, that really translates to more business because they go and tell their friends, they tell other people. I've gotten so many pet stores to call me and buy stuff for me because my animals don't die when I deliver them. I hand deliver my fish to the pet store. When a pet store buys fish from me, I hand deliver them. Then I advertise for the pet store. I put it on all the message boards. Now I actually talk about it on my YouTube channel. You guys have seen videos. Before the corona, I was delivering fish to pet stores. So this is a very lucrative business. So shrimp seems to be quite lucrative actually. It's so easy to breed. There's a lot of trial and error, so don't buy the most expensive shrimp you can imagine when you're getting into it. Buy something that's cheap. Buy somebody's throwaways. Like for example, I have cull shrimp that I would sell to somebody for $1 or $2 or $3. My friend actually came the other day and bought $40 worth of shrimp. I gave him 20 shrimp. I told him catch from these 3 tanks, catch whatever you want for 40 bucks. And he did. And he went home and he's so happy. He's like, this is the first time they ever lived. I bought shrimp from so many other people. I've been to Shrimp King or whatever his name is and bought like hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of shrimp. And none of them lived. And I bought shrimp from me, they're all alive. There's a reason for that. And now he's telling all of his friends. He wants to open a store, and guess whose shrimp he wants to sell? Mine. He wants exclusively to sell my shrimp at his store. So I'm considering these things, right? So these are all things to really pay attention to. And shrimp is very lucrative. So that's something to really pay to consider to breed. Another thing to consider breeding is like angelfish and South American cichlids that are easy to breed that also sell. Discus seems to be something that's lucrative, but it's not on the easy side. It is a little bit, it's not difficult to breed discus. It's just a little bit more work. And to get them to breed and to keep the tanks and stuff like that, to get the pairs. But once you have a breeding pair, for example, they breed quite readily and they raise their own fry. So once you have a pair going, they do all the work at that point. So it's always getting to that point that is difficult. So that's the investment part, and that's something to consider. So if you're new to the hobby, I wouldn't recommend getting into things that are difficult or advanced. I would recommend doing things that are a little bit more easier. So start with like angelfish are quite easy to keep and breed. So like I would recommend, it's still not a beginner fish, but once you're advanced enough to keep angelfish, you can attempt breeding them and actually start making profit from them. Blue rams seem to be quite lucrative. I actually, in 2004, I was making money. This is when I first started my first fish room here in Canada. Actually 2001. So in 2001, I was selling blue rams. 2001. I was selling blue rams to several of the pet stores here in Toronto, and I was making a large profit. I actually had a business partner, and I was breeding angelfish and blue rams, and so we had a fish room that had about 40 tanks, and what we used to do was drive around the city twice a month and deliver bags and bags, like several hundred angelfish and several hundred blue rams to pet stores all across Toronto, and they would send us checks in the mail. So I would get a check every couple of days in the mail from a different pet store, and it was very lucrative. We were making really good money. I was in college, and I was making really good money, and that's how I built my first fish room, and it was really good. So now they are producing these guys a lot more in the Far East, but you can still profit. I can get about $2 per blue ram if I were to sell it to a pet store, and sometimes even $2.50 because my blue rams don't really die when they pick them up from me. Some of the stuff that comes from the Far East, they don't really make it when you get it. You might be able to get it pennies on the dollar, but then also you have to pay the shipping and all this stuff. So you have to be able to sell your product to these pet stores, and you have to let them know that your product is a superior product. So it has to be a superior product. So these are things to also consider. I mean, not to go rambling on, but basically there's a lot of different things that you need to really think about in terms of your own personal situation, like your water quality, for example, your market, what type of fish sells in your market, what niches are available for you to exploit. For example, here in Toronto, Plecos seem to be a really big niche right now, and so I'm really exploiting that niche. And Carolina shrimp seems to be a huge niche, so I'm exploiting that niche. Angelfish has always been a huge niche for me, and I'm exploiting that niche constantly, constantly. Even when I'm not trying to make money from selling fish, I sell angelfish. So that's a really big thing. So praise God, I'm really blessed in that aspect. I always have angelfish. I'm just really lucky with them, and just keeping them, breeding them. They just work for me. But not to say that I don't suffer losses. For example, I suffered a loss this morning. Actually, I lost maybe 40 or 50 fry in one of my fry boxes, angelfish fry, and I don't know how they died. They just were all dead this morning. The 4 or 5 died yesterday, which I was alarmed. I did a water change in there. I put new water in. I should have cleaned the bottom. I didn't clean the bottom. Maybe that's why it was bacterial infection. I moved the remaining 50 or so into a tank with other fish in it, and they are doing well now. So, whatever. And but I mean, I have several thousand angelfish in the facility right now. Praise God. And they're doing great, and they're a really big seller for me, and I make really good money selling them. So that's something I'd like to breed right now. And I've always bred angelfish since I was younger. On and off, I've always had at least 2 or 3 breeding pairs that always produce. If you have one pair, you're producing several hundred every month. So it's quite lucrative in that context. So all you need is one tank for the pair to breed them. You're gonna need like at least 5 or 6 tanks to raise fry in, and also double on your spaces by using buckets and containers and stuff like that. My first fish breeding setup here in Canada that was for profit was my first. It was in 1997 or 98 actually. I had a 55 gallon which is still in the house. It's on the other side. I'm actually setting them up for these guys here. So you'll see that in a coming video. So subscribe if you haven't. But yeah, it was a 55 gallon, and I had 2 pairs of blue rams and a couple of tetras and stuff in there. And the blue rams back then, they were wild caught, or they were first generation from wild caught parents, so they were really good quality, and they were not too finicky to breed. They bred readily. And so these 2 pairs of fish produced like 100 fry, let's say, every month or more. And I only had the 55 gallons, so I didn't know what to do with it. And so I had these little ice cream containers, those 5 gallon or a gallon and a half ice cream tubs, the big round plastic ones, the white, not clear but white sided. And so I had 3 of these floating on the tank, and I had every month, so every clutch that I can salvage, I would put into a tub. And so I had the 3 tubs filled up within a month and a half, 2 months. And so I had, by the end of 2 months, I had fry that were about maybe that big in one of the tubs. And so I went to the pet store, and I was buying like a 10-gallon tank to grow those out. And I told the guy at the pet store, like, I have blue ram fry. I don't know what to do with it. They're in an ice cream container this big. And I showed him, back then we didn't have like these high-tech phones. And it was the first phones, and whatever, so it didn't have pictures or anything. So I think I explained to him in just whatever. They were really good quality. They were all growing well. They were all looking very nice or whatever. And he said, bring some more the next time when you come. So I did. I took like I think 20 of them to the store, and he gave me $3 each. So that's $60. Bought me 2 more tanks, and within 6 months of time, I had like maybe 10 tanks. So you can start very small. Just have to start small too. Like if you have 55 gallon, don't try to breed Oscars or angelfish. That's just not realistic. Try to breed something that's lucrative, that's small. Like if you have a 55 gallon, I would recommend breeding a small South American cichlid, epistogrammas that are really high in demand right now. So you can set up like a small planted type of setup with like nice substrate, like 88 type of substrate and stuff. A little bit expensive on the initial startup, but like you are going to benefit from having a proper environment for these animals, and then plant it properly, and then put a couple of caves in there, put a couple of leaves. It's not going to be like the nicest thing in the world to look at. You don't want it, you don't care. I'm not saying to make it like a display aquarium, but make it naturalistic for the animal as much as possible, and they will readily breed in there for you. And then if you, like for example, my Epistogramma agassizii, the pair I had, I paid $105 for the male and the female, and they were quite nice, but $105 is a lot of money for 2 fish. So if you have a 55 gallon, and you can get 2 pairs of fish and there are male and 3 females, and they produce you 2 clutches every month, you're making money really quickly. You're making your money back. So that's something to consider. But again, like, that doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed thing. It's an investment, and these animals could suffer losses. A lot of times, they could die and stuff like that. Not every animal breeds so readily. Right now, I have over 10 different types of hypancestris in my facility, and three of them are actively breeding right now. And I actually have success with one, heavy success with one, and moderate success with the other, and the third one is just starting again. So we are, fingers crossed. And so these guys are going to be at least another year. I bought them last year, so they've already been here eating food and living for a year. So if I had to keep them alive for a whole year, I mean, thank God I haven't lost anything, but things could happen. I'm not saying you will. I mean, in my case, they probably are going to live and do well and breed, but just things could happen. Like, look at what happened with the Pseudohamidia and Apitanos. I bought 6, I lost 4 already. I have 2 left, so that's a loss right there. I mean, those 2 could be 2 males, those 2 could be 2 females. If it is a male and a female, praise God. I mean, I have 2 more coming, and if I can keep all 4 alive, I might get a pair out of it. So potentially I might breed them. Potentially. That's a big potential, right? Like a big if. So really have to pay attention to these type of stuff. So I'm not going to really blabber on too much about this. Comment below and let me know what you guys think. And let's look into this in more detail in coming videos. So subscribe down below if you haven't, and hit that notification icon so you get updated when these type of videos get uploaded. As always, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to my rambling all and throughout this whole thing. I think this is going to be a long one, I think. But I hope everybody found it valuable. I love you all. I'll see you on the next video. God bless.